Hi, everyone. Super Bowl champ Vernon Davis here from Legal Help Center. If you've been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, listen up, because we have legal professionals standing by right now to answer your questions for free. You can find out if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth.
Thanks, Vernon. You heard it, folks. If you've been injured, call and find out how much you qualify for. Call 800-497-4410. Advertisement sponsored by Legal Help Center. May not be available in all states.
This is Next Steps for Seniors with your host, Wendy Jones. Each week, Wendy brings resources and information to help guide you through those next steps with elderly parents and loved ones. You can follow, subscribe, and share on your favorite podcast platform. If you have questions or topic suggestions for Wendy, you can call us at 248-651-5010 or email at hello@nextstepsforseniors.com.
Hello and welcome to Next Steps for Seniors, Conversations on Aging. I'm your host, Wendy Jones, and each and every week, as you know, we really do our best to bring information that is pertinent, relative, and something that you will learn from, because knowledge is power. And our topic today is understanding sundowning. And many people have probably heard the word sundowning before, but they're like, what exactly is that? Well, we have a dementia care practitioner certified in our studio today, and she is also the director of operations for Next Steps for Seniors. So I'm blessed to have Erica Ancel from our team. How are you, Erica?
Great, Wendy. Thanks so much for having me on again.
I love having you. You are a wealth of knowledge. You are very familiar. You worked in memory care communities for years.
For almost a decade, I have. Yeah. So, and it has been one of my passions is to make sure that each and every person who has dementia is truly taken care of in the most intimate ways, making sure that they have the right activities and they're surrounded by the right community.
Amen. There's so much truth and knowledge and necessity in what you just said. And so that's why we're here today. Our goal is just to share information with you, because as we age, things start happening. And believe it or not, Alzheimer's is on the rise, as many of us already know, for various reasons. There's a ton of research going on right now. But what we want to talk about today is the process of it and when you get to this point called sundowning. So Erica, tell us the definition of sundowning.
So sundowning is a term that we use to describe a certain set of behaviors, which is just as unique as every other person. So in those typical behaviors and signs that you're going to see from an individual who is experiencing sundowning is going to be increased confusion, anxiety, restlessness, agitation, and it typically begins in the late afternoon or the early evening. It's often seen with individuals who have Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. What most people don't realize, though, is that your dementia triggers a sundowning, but it's actually the sun.
Okay, so I want to just tell a quick story. I had a client that I was working with a couple years ago, and she's like, the mornings, my mom is so clear, and so she just has great conversations. We have coffee together, and we just have the best mornings ever. And it's just been so fantastic, and she's going on and on and on. And then she goes, and then as the day progresses, I literally feel like I'm losing her. And then by the time we get to dinner, it's not just a disaster. It is traumatic and it's awful. And I was like, oh, well, she's sundowning. And then my client was like, she's what? I didn't know this was a thing. So that's why we're talking about it, because as a day progresses, not just a physical day, but as the disease state progresses, you might not notice sundowning in the very beginning. You could be diagnosed, you could have an MRI, you could have all the documentation that you have Alzheimer's, and you may not have sundowning. It's when you get a certain point in a stage, correct?
It can happen when you get to a certain point in stage, but it often happens and is triggered when our rhythm and our day that's been regulated for so long kind of tilts off kilter a little bit. So most people don't realize that obviously the sun is what helps to trigger the sundowning, but it's also the changes in their routine.
Oh, okay.
It's their changes in their circadian rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
It's the changes in their sleep. So an individual who is diagnosed with early onset dementia, who worked that 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. shift at the factory, right? He got up at 4 o'clock every single morning, is now getting up at 7 a.m. because he's in his late 60s, early 70s, and he's been diagnosed for a couple of years, and he doesn't have any purpose throughout his day to keep him going. So he's sleeping for longer, he's napping more frequently, and he doesn't know what to do. So it's kind of like a perfect storm. So what that changes in, the light, the routine changes, they're more tired, or they're overstimulated because we are confused and we might not remember how to use the remote. And then somebody is talking to us and a telephone is ringing and we don't know how to answer our telephones anymore. All of this can trigger the set of behaviors that we refer to as sundowning. And when I say behaviors, I think that's also another word that we should touch on just in a little bit.
Agreed. That's fair. So I had a client that was trying to answer the telephone and he picked up the remote. But so this is exactly what you're talking about. There's just a slight, that it's long and it's thin, but there's just a slight difference in how that's processed.
Mm-hmm. So, and that brings up a great point is if somebody had a cell phone, but they were on a cordless phone often, you can Bluetooth your cell phones to some cordless phones where you can answer and hang up, and your individual who has dementia and is going through the disease process is actually able still to answer that phone.
I love it. So tell us what families can do when sundowning starts creeping in.
So when sundowning starts to creep in, one of the most important things for a family to do is to establish a routine. If Sue is at mom and dad's house every single morning at 7 a.m. to help make them breakfast, Sue has to be there at 7 a.m. every day. What we want to do is recreate the same day, every day, as best as possible, with a little bit of changes. So if Sue's there at 7 and she makes breakfast and she does the crossword puzzle, when we have more moments of clarity first thing in the morning because we're fresh, we've typically slept for 6 to 9 hours.
Hopefully.
in one shot. And you have more moments of clarity. Most individuals who have dementia have early morning. They have those moments of clarity where they're able to hold conversations a little bit more. They're able to concentrate. So if we can mimic their day that they did for work, so you do the crossword puzzles in the morning and you do all your morning mental brain workouts. And then come lunchtime, Steve comes over and you guys have sandwiches every day for lunch. Well, it doesn't matter if it's ham or turkey, but it's on the white bread that we're all aware of. And at that point, we're able to take a nap because that nap is vital because we've been up since 5 or 6 this morning.
Exactly. Yep.
We've got to take a short nap, but try to keep it short with that individual because what we don't want to do is have them wake up and experience 3 mornings in 24 hours because the 36-hour day is a real thing.
So once they wake up from the nap, they actually think it's the morning.
They do. It's oftentimes, I haven't ate, it's good morning. But if we can keep those naps a little bit shorter and our circadian rhythms aren't as disrupted by it, and then we go into socialization in the afternoon because your loved one who is experiencing dementia and has started sundowning or possibly started sundowning worked a full day, but they're often in their 30s, 40s, and 50s in their mind. They see an older person in the mirror, but they think that they're still working. So what did we do in our 30s, 40s, and 50s? We raised children. We paid bills at the table. We played cards at the table, and we helped our kids with our homework at our table. So in the mornings, we do those morning mental workouts, but in the evening, we do socialization in late afternoon and early evening because that's going to, firstly, help them sleep a little bit more, but secondly, keep them engaged without reverting into themselves.
I just have to say my biggest pet peeve is somebody with any chronic disease state getting up and eating breakfast and then sitting in front of the TV. Mm-hmm. Sitting and not utilizing the brain that we have, the body that we've been given. We've got to keep mobile. We've got to keep stimulated. And I love the activity idea at the table. one of the other things I wanted to mention, the morning time, if there is any possible way that you can get your loved one out for a walk in the sunlight, in the morning, and being mobile. So critical. Your brain re-triggers, right? It's like, oh, it's morning, it's bright, I'm outside. And it just starts your day so much better. So I love these regular scheduled meals, so important. My parents love to play cards at night, as an example. So now if they can't play cards anymore, now we do something at night as an activity, right? Because that's what they're used to.
Well, if they're unable to play cards and you don't know what to do, matching things isn't necessarily playing euchre or rummy. But if you have, okay, Dad, we've got to find the two red queens, and you play the memory game.
Love it.
With matching, because then we're still using tactile items to help connect our brain, but also to use our voice, as well as have some deduction theory of, oh, was the red queen in the upper right-hand corner? How about try the second one from the bottom left-hand corner? Is that the red diamond queen? And we flip them, and you get to celebrate a success because they were able to help match. Even if you had to help, they have to turn the cards. We celebrate every little moment in life with everybody, whether they're a toddler or older.
And don't you feel like, the celebration is huge, but the consistency, the calm atmosphere. If there's too many things going on at the same time, it's hard to focus.
Absolutely. So limiting that overstimulation. So we all know that Grandpa loves to go to birthday parties. Maybe we just have a small birthday party with Grandpa.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in just a moment. You're listening to Next Steps for Seniors, Conversations on Aging. Welcome back to Next Steps for Seniors, Conversations on Aging. I'm your host, Wendy Jones, and we are here today with Erica Ancel. And our topic is Alzheimer's and sundowning specifically. But moving into this segment, Erica and I would really like to talk about practical signs to watch for, because it's very confusing as the disease state kind of progresses throughout the years. And correct me if I'm wrong, Erica, it can be anywhere from a year to 20 years you can have dementia, Alzheimer's.
It could be. It just depends on the type of dementia and what triggers those dementias within the body. The mind and the brain is such a wild universe of exploration at this point in time, where we have made a load of research into how the brain reacts and what dementia is. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like the outer space. We've only explored just a couple of % of what is actually there.
Right. Yeah, the brain is a fascinating thing. So tell our listeners what are practical signs just to keep an eye out for?
So some of the practical signs to keep an eye out for are changes in their demeanor. Are they a little bit more irritable? I don't want to talk to you. They're turning away from you. They're just kind of grumbling underneath their breath. They turn around and they're just starting to disconnect from you. If they're starting to pace or asking reoccurring questions like, where's my children at? Where's my husband? Or I want to go home.
I want to go home is a big one.
I want to go home is a very big part. And I want to go home is easily redirectable. And Wendy had mentioned getting out for that morning walk. Sometimes getting out with that person in the afternoon when they want to go home and coming right back to your door 5, 6, 7 minutes later, we celebrate saying, oh my God, is this I think I found your house, Mom.
We're home.
We're home. And then walk in the door, go, there's your picture of your wedding from Mom, from your wedding in 1935.
Right.
There's a picture of Dad. And they'll often recognize their own belongings at that point. Mm-hmm. But when they get so irritated and they get so confused and they're scared, part of sundowning is being scared because they're confused and their brain is unable to map a full thought together for the immediate. Now, Mom can most certainly remember how to make that meatloaf she made in 1984.
And this is why it's so important to understand that you just go back in time. So when they're saying home, they're meaning where they were raised as a child.
Or where they lived when they were first married.
Yes, they're going back. I mean, just keep thinking anytime you have a conversation with anybody with this disease state, you just have to be thinking whatever they're saying to you, they're thinking it 20 or 30 years before they actually are right now.
Absolutely.
It just makes life easier because then you're like, oh, I get it. A lot of times I've heard, in fact, this is a true story, a client called her son, her husband, because he looked almost exactly like him when they got married 45 years earlier. Mm-hmm. So, if that happens, just, being aware that that's why that's happening is really critical.
And not arguing with them, because that may increase that irritability because they know they're right in their mind. Mm-hmm. So approaching somebody who is sundowning, who has dementia, and meeting them where they're at, because they're no longer in our true reality, but they're in their own reality. We have to meet them where they're at because they're unable to make those steps to come towards us.
I just say simplify as much as you can and ask questions. Oh, tell me about that, Mom. What did you want to do with that? Mm-hmm. Just asking questions is always huge. What if someone complains about shadows or like people outside or things like that? Any ideas on what that is?
So sometimes that is connected to the type of dementia that they've been diagnosed with, whether that be Lewy body dementia or frontal temporal lobe. If they're seeing shadows, or they say they're seeing shadows, or they woke up and they're very scared and they said that they saw somebody, that is often tied to some of those vivid dreams that they're having because their brain is shutting down and restarting every time we lay down and go to sleep. So we're resetting our circadian rhythm. So some of those vivid dreams can just happen. But getting out and taking a walk in the evening also helps settle down the body because the body says, oh, I'm tired from that walk. It's time to go to bed, right, and time to shut down. So there's just a couple practical things in science to look for. One of the other things that we can do when we're looking at the practicality is if somebody's having difficulty settling in the evening, mm-hmm, is keeping that routine consistent. If somebody had a beer at 6:30 at night after dinner, buy an NA beer.
Yeah, keep it consistent.
Yeah, keep it consistent. It's all about consistency and routine.
Mm-hmm. And I do think it's important, too, to recognize that, the process of what you're walking through, they're not always 100% understanding it, but you are, right? So the easier you make, you don't argue, you don't say no, you don't, right? You're constantly pleasant, calm, loving, and it's just amazing how you can walk through this journey together and it not be. And don't be afraid of medicine. I just want to say this at nighttime, because usually when people are up all night, then they're like, oh, I can't do this anymore. Well, guess what? If you would just give them something to take at night to sleep, you actually can keep them at home with you a little bit longer. That's when you need to move into a memory care, when it's affecting everybody in the environment and there's no way you can even function because you're exhausted. And I'm sure someone is listening to the program right now who is so tired. In fact, I had a lady that used to sleep in front of her door because she was so nervous that her husband was going to leave in the middle of the night. This is what we do not want you to do. This is why we're having the program. We want to help you manage it.
Absolutely. And Wendy, I think one of the best ways to help manage is take a look at their physical environment of where they live. One of the most important things we can do is get rid of those old dimmed light bulbs. They make daylight bulbs for a reason. The brighter the bulb for the longer of the day, the better off we are, because we're mimicking a 12 to 14 hour day. I read somewhere over the weekend that we had our last 8:30 p.m. sunset this week, which left us.
Do not say that.
I know. But we are moving towards the end of summer, unfortunately.
And we're in Michigan, in case anyone's listening right now. Yeah, because some people all across the nation will be listening. But yes,
but in a few short months, we will have a 5 p.m. sundown, which is hard to think of because we're still 2 or 3 months away.
So tell us how this affects the person with Alzheimer's. Yeah.
So as the circadian rhythm changes and your sunlight changes, it triggers your body to sleep and to wake. So if we take a look at, especially people who are in the Midwest, in the cold areas of the United States, we're inside for longer. We don't go outside and we're not getting the right amount of vitamin D any longer. So supplementing with vitamin D is important. Always consult your doctor. We are not physicians.
No. Yeah.
But, making sure that we're taking the right amount of vitamin D, but also kind of simulating the outside, inside in the evening and in the early morning. So there are daylight alarm clocks. There are daylight lights now. And I know that we hated those fluorescent lights. They've really changed quite a bit. We have to get our houses bright. We have to open up the windows during the day so that way our body knows it is time to wake up and it's time to be awake, because that has been our trigger. Unless you're somebody who worked midnights for a really, really long time, and maybe it changes a little bit for them.
But for the majority, I love this idea. I mean, the light is huge, and just knowing that is going to help everybody. So we've only got a minute and a half left in the program. Can you share, if someone's just tuning in, what are some good takeaways to understand about sundowning and what we can do?
If somebody wants to very quickly learn about sundowning, going on Amazon, learning about the 36-hour day, but also a couple of tips is that we have to meet them where they're at. And it's okay to be overwhelmed, because it is an overwhelming process for those who do remember, but also for the person in front of you. A couple of other takeaways is don't take it personally. If the person that you're taking care of, your loved one, is struggling and can't remember your name, if they can't remember their name or they're looking for their children, there is a solution. And sometimes that's taking a step back and offering a cup of coffee, or just sitting down and asking them, can you tell me more about that? As somebody is actively sundowning and moving through these changes in their body, if we can just invest a little bit more time into them to ask them about why they're so afraid. What do you see? Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Can you show me? And investing that time is part of the routine that we need to establish, but it also respects that that person in front of you is an aging older adult who is going through a disease process that, while we don't understand, what we can do is offer them empathy and sit with them and be able to hold their hands.
And love them through it. We're in this together. You are not alone. Please reach out to Next Steps for Seniors. We are here for you. 248-651-5010.